we are streaming. You're good to go whenever you're ready.
Great. Okay, good evening, everybody. I want to call this meeting to order. We're going to begin with items to be removed from the consent agenda. If a board member wishes to remove an item on the consent agenda for further discussion, a motion to remove item from the consent agenda must be made. However, once a motion and second are made for the consent agenda items listed below, simple questions can be asked regarding any of them, as you would normally do for individual resolutions. 3A, approval of minutes from the 3/16/21 board meeting. B, approval of personnel agenda. C, approval of vendor health service agreements and amendments. D, acceptance of arrangements for appropriate special programs and services as recommended by the CSE CPSE. E, approval of budget transfers. F, acceptance of gifts and donations. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Paul.
Second?
Second, Sam.
Are there any questions before we read acceptance of gifts and donations? Anything that needs to be expanded upon? I saw that we have hired, that we are set with the hiring of aides, so.
Yes,
Dr. Barker,
obviously,
thank you.
through the consent agenda, the board certainly supports appointments, as you mentioned, Rena, of a number of teacher aides that will help us move forward with this next level of transition for our learning models, as well as our remote academy teachers, building substitutes. So a large number of personnel decisions or actions tonight. And thank you to Dr. Barker and our school leaders for all their work to certainly vet candidates and participate in the hiring process. Critical component of our transition plan for the spring.
Thank you. And I'm going to read the gifts before we ask all in favor. The various items for Chatsworth Avenue School from the Chatsworth Avenue PTA valued at $384.53. $5,000 from the Mamaroneck Avenue School PTA for the return to school school supplies, and various items for the Hommocks Middle School from the Hommocks PTA valued at $529. And as always, thanks to our PTAs who've been a tremendous amount of support for our students and our families and wonderful partners for the Board of Education and the administrators in this district. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now with gratitude, I want to turn it over for item 4, which is Mamaroneck Schools Foundation Grant Awards.
Thank you, Rena. I'm going to present the slate of 4 grants that we're presenting to the.
Julie, why don't you and Jackie introduce yourselves? Because I don't know if
Sorry.
people know who you are. Thanks.
I'm Julie Convaser. I'm the VP of Grants at the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation this year.
Thanks. And Jackie Emmett is the president.
Sorry, I just unmuted myself. I'm Jackie Emmett. I'm the president of the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
And the board of the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation last week approved a slate of 4 grants for the 2021-2022 school year, which is following our off-cycle grants, which Jackie will talk about in a minute. So these 4 grants total $136,915 and will have an impact on the entire community. Because it's only 4 grants, I'm just going to run through them real quick. The first grant is called Exploring Learning Gizmos. It's to the Hommocks Science Department. And Exploring Learning Gizmos is an online library of interactive science simulations supporting the latest educational standards and assessments. The grant covers a 15-month license that all Hommocks science teachers will have access to. It's a database of virtual experiments to support hands-on lab activities. So it's something that'll be useful for both continuing remote students and students in the classroom. Our next grant is to Mamaroneck Avenue School. It's for professional development for all MAS teachers with a prestigious consultant scholar, Dr. Jose Medina, whose work centers on the pillars of dual language, with one of those pillars being the development of critical consciousness. So the professional development will focus on developing pedagogical skills that directly impact emergent bilingual learners. And this grant is partially funded by the Barbara Bennett Roans Memorial Endowment. Our next grant is to the Mamaroneck High School for the STEAM collab equipment. And the district is in the process, I'm sure everybody knows, of designing a STEAM collab at MHS to serve as a collaborative space for multidisciplinary teaching and learning. And this grant will fund the purchase of 4 pieces of significant equipment. They're called the Form 3L SLA resin printer prototyper, the Fusion Pro 48 laser cutter, a CNC machine, and a plasma cutter. And these will be used in the design lab with the collaborative design lab course, as well as in other courses such as computer science, engineering, architecture, design, and other clubs and classes that involve design thinking and prototyping. And it's our understanding that it will also be used by community groups as well at the STEAM Co Lab. And our final grant is to Murray Avenue School. It's called Social Justice Pedagogy, Building Interconnectedness and Empathy Through Literature. And it's a school-wide social justice curriculum that will use anti-bias literature to guide conversations among students and staff about inequity, diversity, identity, and discrimination. It will provide every classroom with a social justice kit that includes 1 children's book per month through the school year that explores a different social justice concept, as well as corresponding discussion questions and activities. It will also fund a quarterly book club for all staff. And each month, the school will celebrate the program by highlighting that month's book in the weekly recap, along with student reflections. And this grant is being partially funded by the Diane G. Milstein Endowment. So that is our grants, 4 grants totaling $136,915. Jackie?
Thank you so much, Julie. Yes, I just wanted to thank Julie and the team of the Grant Selection Committee for doing the work of reviewing the teacher grants. And just so everybody knows sort of how our process with Mamaroneck Schools Foundation works, this is our standard cycle of teacher grants that we have every year. So teachers apply for the grants in the fall, and Julie and her team did an extensive review of the grants. And this year, we also had an opportunity in the fall to do 2 large off-cycle grants, which totaled over $100,000, as well as our annual student grants, which was over $8,000. So totaling for the whole year, our donation total was over $247,000. So we are so thankful to Julie and her team, to the board and advisory board of MSF, as well as all of our donors and supporters who have made this possible. And we are truly excited about these grants that are happening this year for the school district.
Thank you, Jackie, and thanks, Julie. And I know Dr. Shaps, probably wants to say something about this design lab, but we are so fortunate to have an organization such as the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation. Excuse me. You have been incredible with so much of funding and vision and partners that really enable us to do a lot of very innovative things in our classrooms and for our community. So thanks to you and to all of the donors.
Yes, and we certainly appreciate the incredible generosity and support by MSF. It has been an extraordinary year. You've come forward to support the school system and all our students and staff and families through the off-cycle grant and the forward-thinking technology kit off-cycle grant, as well as this latest round of grant awards. And I would say on behalf of the STEM teachers at MHS, we are just completely thrilled with this opportunity to receive funding for the D-Lab equipment. This is going to be a one-of-its-kind space that really will allow, I would say, the next several generations of students, STEM, students to really appreciate and do hands-on work that is happening across the nations at top universities. So we're thrilled. And they're excited, and they really are looking forward to moving forward with this project and inviting the community in to see how unique the experiences will be through your generosity and the generosity of the donors in the community. So we appreciate it, And, again, thank you very much to all. We love having this partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, moving on to recommended action that the Board of Education accept the grants recommended by the Mamaroneck Schools Foundation, which as just presented, and also listed on board docs. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Paul.
Sam.
Oh, second, Paul.
All in favor? B, resolution to authorize piggybacking for the purchase of furnishings, furniture, and services. Whereas Texas Region 8 Education Service Center has made available to other municipalities a contract for furnishings, furniture, and services. Whereas said contract for furnishings, furniture, and services was let for bid consistent with the requirements of General Municipal Law, Section 103. Whereas the school district is permitted to utilize said contract in accordance with terms and conditions of bid requirements of General Municipal Law, Section 103. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the use of the contract for purchase of furnishings, furniture, and services from BCI Eurobib USA, Inc., a contract let by the Texas Region 8 Education Service Center in accordance with the requirements of General Municipal Law, Section 103 for the 2020-21 school year. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Paul.
Second,
Second, Ariane.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, we're moving to item 6, policies for a first reading. This is a first reading only. This is a new policy 0105, which now should be on your screens. It is entitled the Board of Education Equity Policy. It's a rather long policy, so we're not going to read the entire thing. But Rob, do you want to read some of the highlights?
Sure, I'm going to read the bullet points. In furtherance of this policy, the board commits to develop the individual and organizational knowledge, attitudes, skills, and practices to create culturally responsive learning and working environments that expect and support high academic achievement for all students and employees, where differences will not just be seen as strengths, but will be nourished, celebrated, and welcomed because they are what makes students and families unique. Provide equitable, inclusive, and diverse opportunities for all students to reach their highest potential. Understand, identify, address, and eliminate the biases, barriers, and disparities that limit a student's chance to graduate high school prepared for college, for a career, and for life. Review district policies and practices to ensure equity and access for all students, with an intentional focus on supporting the most vulnerable learners, and allocate budgetary resources to support this policy, including professional development, staffing, curriculum resources, and programmatic experiences.
Thank you, Rob. And again, the entire policy is listed on board docs, and we will provide a link to it in our follow-up, in Debbie Monetta's follow-up write-up of our board meeting. This is part of the board's commitment to address issues of equity and to address our policies and do a thorough review of our policies. One policy that we are currently reviewing and working in collaboratively with with members of the district equity team is a review of our code of conduct. There are some other policies that we will also be reviewing, for example, our hiring policy, and we look forward to the work and to everything that will go into the furtherance of this policy. Okay. With that, I am going to turn this over to Dr. Shaps for any updates, and then we'll turn to the superintendent's recommended budget.
Great, thank you. Just a quick update. Today, we welcome back our staff from the spring break holiday, and certainly it was a very busy day for our building administrators, school leaders, our staff, our faculty, central administration. Teachers now are working to prepare for Thursday's upcoming transition to full day in-person learning and the shift to our grade level remote academy. We recognize that the students and families are supportive of the decision to use today and tomorrow as designate them as asynchronous learning days so that teachers can really get ready and prepare for what it is, I think, is a significant shift in the next phase of this year of the COVID pandemic. As we welcome back, I would say, a majority of our students back into school and anticipate what I would say the reopening of full day instruction on this Thursday, April 8th. And so last minute review of health and safety protocols, making sure that our staff is trained with, as I mentioned earlier, with the board's action this evening, we've hired a significant number of additional staff to ensure that we have the appropriate level of staffing to supervise students for lunch and recess and make it through the day. So a lot of work continues. We are confident that we will get off to a good start on April 8th. We will be excited to welcome back and see a lot of our students who've spent most of this year as remote learners. So reintroducing students to the school learning environment. Understanding that based on social distancing, health and safety protocols, that the learning environment will look different, it will feel different. We will continue to adhere to what I would say social distancing and health protocols that may restrict what teachers want to accomplish in the classroom in terms of individual or small group instruction. But we're excited to welcome students back safely and staff as well. So we certainly encourage parents to continue to visit our school sites to just review the information. We are asking parents to participate on a consistent basis with the daily health attestation process. Now that we won't have the ability to take temperatures every day before students arrive at school. And we ask that parents continue to adhere to expectations around any type of COVID symptoms or medical issues, that they remain conservative around sending students to school if they're not feeling well, and make sure that we adhere to quarantine expectations based on New York State Department of Health. So, you know, I've said it all along. I said it today in the message. We're all in this together. We need to continue to work together as a community of learners, as a broader community, to support one another as we look to finish the year on a high note and take that next step towards maintaining a sense of regular school between now and June. One just real caution point, obviously we'll continue on a weekly basis to look at the countywide positivity rates, knowing that we have the nimbleness and the flexibility to adjust based on what really happens in our region, in our community, and our staff relative to COVID. So with that, I don't know if the board has any questions, any comments at this point?
Just a big thank you for making this happen to everyone in every building, because it takes a village. And I know, speaking on behalf of the parents I pass every day and myself, and it just the incredible gratitude we all feel about the return to school and the joy that the children are experiencing, just anticipating it. It's like, you know, that joy of the first day of school come April right now. So it's really, you just should know that all of this hard work is really being celebrated in households across the district.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge the professionalism of our faculty and our staff. every district employee, the hard work of our administrative team. Today we went through at all levels just our administrative meetings in terms of planning preparation, and there weren't a lot of things to discuss because we've worked hard over the last 6 weeks to prepare for the next phase. We are excited and going to celebrate on Thursday at all of our schools in different ways the return of our students to full day learning. And we hope that parents can participate in some ways and hear the exciting stories about what it means to be for the first time, whether you're a kindergarten student, coming to school for all day and finding that level of joy and fun of learning. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so with that, I think we want to continue on and focus now and shift our attention to our budget presentation, our continuing conversation, and just what I would say is a detailed examination of the budget. So this will be our third session looking carefully at the budget. I'm going to turn things over to our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations and Finance, Sylvia Wallach, and I'll chime in certainly as we go along. Tonight's focus really is that at the last board session, budget session, we took a look at in-depth look at our, what I would say, program or instructional portion of the budget. We're going to shift our focus tonight to general support, transportation, to employee benefits, to debt service, and really that covers a lot of ground in the non-instructional categories of this budget. Board should feel comfortable stopping at any point and asking for clarification or seeking additional information for each section of this or function of the budget. So with that,
And before we dive in, I do want to let the community know that the budget bills which apply to education have currently been presented. So we have those budget bills. They have not yet been signed by the governor, but there's agreement between the Assembly and the Senate and presumably the governor. That being said, we still do not know for sure what our allocation is going to be because there's a complex formula involved. So that will come within the next several days. But we do know that this is that there is more money generally for school districts across the state. So more to come on that. And there was some very effective advocacy over the course of this budget season on proposals that would have hurt districts statewide. I won't go into the details, but more to come in the upcoming days as to how it will specifically impact our district.
Yeah, and for those community members who are tuning in this evening, we want to make mention that we've added or have confirmed that we will meet on the April 13th to continue the budget conversation. And based on Rena, your comments about the state budget agreement, we plan to focus in and have that information at hand in detail about revenues and state aid at our next board session. So the timing is right in terms of our focus and our ability to kind of look deep into the revenue side at our next meeting. Okay, so before I just to recap, the recommended budget presented to the Board of Education for consideration is $144,714,871. It represents approximately 2.1 million budget to budget increase or 1.48%. The tax levy to support this budget is $131,311,044. It reflects a tax levy increase of 1.99% as well. And so with that, I'll turn things over to Sylvia.
Great, thank you very much. So just to reiterate, that meeting is next week, Tuesday, April 13th. And as both Rena and Bob have said, the focus will be on revenue, and we will be able to have the information on the state budget included at that time, hopefully. So we're going to be going through tonight the expenditure items that were not included last time. Last time we went over instruction. So this meeting, we'll be going over everything else, the general support, transportation, employee benefits, debt service, and interfund transfers. And we have details on the pages coming up, so I won't go through this page as much. Bob, you have the controls, right? So I have, okay. So we're going to be starting off with general support, and also here in the future pages, there are details of each function. The functions are the 1010 and the 1040, and these explain what the expenditures are being paid for. And you can see the changes in those budgets from budget to budget on each line item, but I would prefer to go through them as we go through each one, and that's coming up in a couple of pages. And that's just a continuation. So the first one is 1010. It's the Board of Education expenses. And these expenses include memberships for the New York State School Boards Association, Westchester Putnam School Boards Association, and other agencies. We pay for board docs. That's the system we use to have all the board information and board meeting information, and for policy updates when the policy updates are received as changes are made to federal, state, and local regulations, and then they have to be reflected in the district's policies. Also for training, new board members must attend training, and those even that aren't new can attend trainings as well. While participating in these groups is optional, they do provide the district with a tremendous amount of information, and we continue to support that through this budget. The district clerk expenses include a stipend for the district clerk, which is a required position. Also for transcript conversion and storage, as we're required to keep transcripts for a very long time, and these services are mandated. You can see there's a slight decrease in these due to decrease in some of the conversion and storage costs. The 1060, the district meeting, that's the annual budget vote. This is showing a $400 decrease, which is a decrease in some of the supplies, but the costs include the printing and advertising for the annual meeting, things such as the absentee ballots, the postage for that as well. It includes paying the people that come and man and work at our polls, the election materials and supplies. And all of these expenditures are mandated. There is no discretion in terms of spending or not. The chief school administrator, this function 1240 includes the salaries for the superintendent and the clerical staff in the superintendent's office. It includes dues and memberships and subscriptions, some consultants and conference day. The superintendent's conference day costs are in here, and office supplies. There is a small increase of 0.4% in this budget line. 1310, that is the business administration. And you can see, without me reading to you, it's for salaries for supervision of all the non-instructional services, as well as the staff performing the functions, all of the business functions that you would see. All of these services are required to be performed. And over the past few years, the FTEs have been reduced and costs have been contained due to the paperless initiatives. Even having said that, this budget is scheduled to go up by $30,900 or 3.6%. Auditing, you can see that all of these are required services. We have a claims auditor, and that claims auditor reviews every non-payroll payment that goes out of the district that is required by the 5-point plan. And we have an external auditor, and that auditor issues an opinion on our financial statements at the end of each year. The internal auditor comes in and does a risk assessment and review of one in-depth item. Each time he or she comes. Actuarial services are for compliance with generally accepted accounting principles, to calculate our other post-employment benefit liabilities. And this budget code also includes some software. and there is no increase in this. The contracts for these services are in place and are currently renewing at no increase. The treasurer is a mandated position and reports directly to the Board of Education. There is a stipend included in this budget. There are conferences for training, office supplies, accounting supplies, and this budget is going up by $408 or 2.1%. The purchasing agent is also a mandated position. Every school district must have one. This budget represents the cost of our purchasing agent, and some clerical support staff is allocated here as well. We do pay to be included and participate in some cooperative purchasing plans, which saves the district tremendous amounts of time and money. And this is also for memberships and conferences. And this budget is going up by $2,983 or 2%. The legal fees, the district pays legal fees for a variety of things, for school board contracts, pre-construction, any construction legal fees are allocated to the projects once they're established, but for pre-construction, they're paid out of the general fund. For disciplinary action, tax, certiorari, labor, all of these legal fees are paid out of this 1420 code. And these legal fees fluctuate from year to year based on what is going on. And this budget is recommended to decrease by $13,000 or 4.5%. The personnel office, the salaries includes salaries for supervision and clerical staff that perform recruitment, attendance, certification monitoring, and civil service compliance. This budget also includes BOCES services that we participate in for labor negotiations, regional recruitment, regional certification, and document storage. The software, some software is included in this budget. The HR help desk software, ASOP, which is the attendance and substitute software that the district uses, My Learning Plan, which tracks professional development, enrollment services, and the WinCap self-service. The self-service portion of WinCap is in this budget. This includes some consultants for human resources, printing and advertising, conference and training, office supplies for that office. And this budget is actually going down. By 1.2%. 1480, the public information budget represents the cost that we pay for the district's communications coordinator, including printing and advertising and office supplies for that function. And this budget is going up by 2.8%.
Before we get to the 1600s, I just want to pause for a second. Does the board have any questions so far? And also to give Sylvia an opportunity to take a drink after reading through all those slides.
You see the size of this drink I came up here with? Very big.
Just a quick question on the legal. So I know there was a lot in legal this year, but we're anticipating that that's not going to bleed over into next year's budget.
That's what we're hoping. There was a tremendous amount of costs incurred as a result of COVID. And so we are counting on things going back to normal. And all of our contracts have also been settled. So we should be not negotiating any contracts next year.
And just the board certainly periodically goes through the RFP review process for legal services. And we have legal services for special education, for general legal consultation, and certainly a range, as Sylvia has mentioned, of services around construction contracts. I would say just general contracts, as well as tax certiorari as well. So a range of legal issues that are covered by the legal services part of the budget.
Also, we're doing an RFP for transportation right now. That's expensive, so we don't expect to repeat that again next year. So certain things that we know that won't happen next year. Things could come up, but some big ticket items we know that we should not have next year with legal fees. So.
Any other questions or comments? Okay,
Thanks.
let me see if I can gain control of advancing the screen.
There you go.
All right,
There
great.
you go. Thank you. So 1620 is the operation of plant. So you think of it, things that takes to run the plant, not necessarily maintain it, that's in 1621, but things that it takes to run. So our custodial staff who are responsible for cleaning our facilities, and our contracted securities, utilities that it takes to run the facilities, certain projects as they come up, custodial supplies. We use a lot of cleaners, a lot of different custodial supplies. Most of the costs in this category are non-discretionary. They're not mandatory, they're not by the state, but we really could not function without them. And we did have a somewhat of a budget decrease in this. There was some amounts of supplies and projects that we cut back on because we were trying to reduce the budget. And so this is reflecting a 1.4% decrease.
And I just want to, if I can just say, the board and community's consideration that in a normal or typical year, our buildings are open very early in the morning, and in most cases, because of evening events, late and through the evening. And so they are used extensively, and certainly for a period around 10 months overall. So it is about how we ensure that things run smoothly in our facilities.
And our maintenance, so 1621 is the maintenance of the plant. And most of the expenditures in this category are also non-discretionary. They are things, the salaries include supervision, maintenance, and some clerical staff. Maintenance salaries include electricians and HVAC and carpenter. And we have a tremendously talented group of people that save this district money every single day. And what we would have to spend on contractors to bring in to do the level of work that they do would be significantly more. And they're really wonderful. But having said that, these also includes contracts for things that we don't have in-house people, air quality testing, elevator maintenance, exterminating, sewer cleaning, stormwater management, and those things. And because we do so much in-house, we do spend a lot on supplies, on electrical supplies and HVAC supplies and paint and plumbing. But this budget also is just a very slight increase of 0.7%. And just to share with you before we go on to the next area, some of the work that has been done by our custodial and maintenance staff over the past 9 months. Our maintenance people installed over 385 natal point bipolar ionization units. And it is those units that give us confidence in coming in and knowing that the air that we're breathing is clean, and we feel comfortable. And I think it's made the teachers feel much more comfortable coming in as well. And our children are in areas that we feel that they're in safe areas. So if we had to do this through a vendor, I don't think we could have done it. Our people did it. They worked tremendously hard on it and got it done. They installed electrical receptacles at all the key buildings for the new temperature checks that we did. And while we were closed, for those of you that aren't familiar with the capital projects budget, there is a large budget in the capital projects for painting. And so while we were closed, we had our custodial and maintenance staff paint over 250 classrooms. And this will free up funds in the capital projects budget to enable us to do work other than painting. So we were just really excited that they were able to do this. And what work we have planned for the spring and summer is the installation of additional security cameras. When we install security cameras, it's very much a joint effort between our electricians and our IT department. So we are glad that we have the skills in-house to do that as well.
And a big thank you to to Steve Brugge and the custodial staff, because we know how much this would have cost the district, and we have lower costs and higher quality than going outside. So thank you to all of them.
Thank you. I will share that. So some projects that we've done at MA at the high school. You know, I don't want to read you the whole list and bore you, but just to give you a chance to look at it. But things like replacing the kitchen hot water heater, I mean, things like that, to be able to do that in-house is just, we're very, very lucky. You know, we replaced, some of this work is not in-house, like replacing the guardrail, that was not in-house, but these are projects that were done. Replaced the ceilings and lights in the whole post road first floor. I mean, that was done in-house, and we did it because they were working on the fire alarm, so we took the opportunity to do it. They did a beautiful job, you know, again, done in-house by the light ceiling and lighting by the post road music department and auditorium corridors, if you have a chance to look up and see it. Some things that are planned for the spring is to install air conditioning for the main Palmer IT closet, additional door swipe entry readers. Those are requested by the principal pretty regularly, and replace some gym wall padding at the high school. At Homix, we installed new gas shutoff buttons in the family and consumer science rooms, again, done in-house. The main hot water system was not done in-house, but some of these things were, some of these things weren't. And what we have planned for the spring and summer, again, is the repeated requests by the principals, the additional door swipe entry readers, and installing an additional employee time clock station. At Central, we installed some additional parking lot lighting. We added the door entry intercom by Trader Joe's playground doors, which was a request for quite some time. Installed the new TV display in the main office lobby and some fencing along the baseline, which was a big safety plus, and added some new HVAC equipment. Planned for the spring and summer, we're going to finish the landscaping by the main office entry path, replace and repair the hydraulic system parts on one of the elevators, and replace some wood timber borders at the playground. At Chatsworth, the PTA very generously donated the sunshade on the playground. Uh-oh. Am I not on here? Hello? Let me see.
Yep.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, you went away. And replaced all the sidewalks along Addison Street and Forest Park Avenue. And that was done actually on a piggybacking contract with the village, and enabled us to get really wonderful rates and get a lot of work done at a lot less than was budgeted. So we were very happy about that and appreciate the village's participation. We added door entry intercom at Forest Park gymnasium doors. We replaced some flooring and painted the railings. For this summer, we are going to replace some classroom floors, repair some plaster walls, replace the three-way heating control valves, and paint the banisters, doors, and metal frames. And at MAS, we installed some gates, replaced a couple of floors, replaced the elevator door, installed the TV in the lobby there as well, painted some railings, and replaced some parking lot fixtures, lined and repaired the existing sewer main pipe. For the spring and summer, we're going to replace some classroom floors. We had pulled those out of the capital projects. And there'll be a lot going on in that building, so we may not do so much this summer. Also at Chatsworth, the capital projects are well underway, and so the in-house work we do there might, for the next few months, might be a little bit limited. And at Murray, we replaced the carpet in the main office, installed gates and fixed some fences, began building and installing the cubbies in the hallways. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see, a couple of years ago, maybe like 2 years ago. Our carpenters built the cubbies for Central, absolutely beautiful, beautiful cubbies. And they're doing them now for Murray. Things we could not buy. Replaced the hot water heater, installed an additional security camera at Damon Terrace, removed small storage room and kindergarten hallway to create a group instruction room, and planned for the summer is the replacement of some cabinets and purchase and install door swipe entry readers. There's a fee.
You know what, we don't always talk about, you know, the amount of work that takes place to maintain our school buildings, to maintain and enhance our school buildings. You know, we have, and it's right in the budget book, we have facilities comprised of more than 1.1 million square feet on approximately 56 acres. I mean, this is a large operation. That's it. It's a very large operation, and it's managed extraordinarily well.
Thank you. Thanks. 1670 is central mailing. Not much to be said here. This is all of our postage, our FedEx, our DHL, UPS fees. These are fairly fixed costs, and hopefully as we continue to be more and more paperless, these will go down, but they certainly are not going up. The central data processing, this includes supervision and all of our technical staff. Equipment such as printers and scanners, some of our program and software support, kind of the non-instructional side of it that we use, those costs are included here, as well as computer supplies. And as the district increases its use of technology, these costs are likely to increase. For this year, the recommended budget is an increase of 8.6%. That is a result of moving some software into this budget to try to make things live where they should, or an increase of $51,000. And just to give equal time or somewhat equal time to a dish, some IT and network infrastructure we have done, upgraded the core switches at MHS and Homix, added an intermediate distributed framework or a network closet, added a layer 3 switch for the telephone system, installed web cameras, deployed 2,200 Chromebooks to students, deployed 350 laptops to teachers, deployed 80 Google Pixel books. They converted the fax application to enable paperless digital receipt of faxes, which sounds silly, but saves a tremendous amount of paper because we don't print what we don't want, and so we don't get the spam faxes all day long. Installed TVs in classrooms for remote war learning, and continued to improve the camera security system. They upgraded core switches to deliver high speeds. I mean, what they have done, what Adish and his team have done this year, the past 12 months, is really nothing short of amazing. And they have enabled so many to learn remotely and so many to teach remotely as well. And you really deserve a tremendous recognition for that.
Yeah, and where this year we really certainly rely on consistency of access to the internet for teaching. There's really been no interruption of service. Working with Adish, we've developed a multi-year plan for infrastructure investment in really ensuring that every, what I would say, component part of the IT network, that we maximize the lifespan of equipment and cycle in over time. So it is certainly a well-managed, coordinated group, and certainly have allowed us and teachers each day to focus in on instruction in a seamless manner.
Any comments at this point or questions from the board?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Adish and his crew and all the work that went into the IT department and the tech work this year, which has been just a huge heavy lift and a lot of work, a lot of effort. And it's really should be acknowledged and appreciated. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, ditto for me. Just the numbers are staggering. 2,200 Chromebooks to students. I mean, that's just incredibly impressive. And I know the process they went through last year to start that process was very time consuming, but they the entire group has done an amazing job at making that so much more efficient. So just kudos to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and is that what drove the 1.4 in 2021? Is it almost all COVID, additional COVID costs?
Let me just go back to the, yes. So what happened with what was when you create a purchase order at the end of the year in June or at the end of May, and you don't receive something by June 30th, you carry over that purchase order. So what happens is that the revenue from the prior year comes into the next year, but so too does the expense. So that's exactly what it is, Rob. That 1.4 million.
Could you go back to the slide, that
Yeah.
prior slide? Yeah, thank you.
Right. So that 1.4 million represents what we've spent from this year, but also what we paid out this year from last year's funds. Make sense?
Yeah, and part of that, I mean, it really is in response to certainly the tech equity plan and expectations that we would not only create the conditions in terms of support learning, but provide equal access to tech resources for all students as well. So it really represents an investment by the board and the community. And it really, I would say this is one piece of that overall tech budget and plan, but it all adds up.
Right. And, you know, just to talk about that 1.4 and the bigger picture is for those that weren't, you know, with this on every step, I know the board understands, but we had those funds available from 1920. They were available because we had 3.5 months of transportation expenses we didn't pay. We had significantly reduced health insurance for the last 3.5 months of last year because, you know, people were not having elective surgeries. We had reduced cost in utilities because we weren't in the buildings. We had reduced cost in substitute teachers. So it was all that savings from being closed that enabled us to spend so much on, you know, the COVID, both technology and remote learning initiatives, as well as the health-related expenditures.
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was clear for whoever's in attendance or hearing it of why that number is bigger and why it's not a concern about blowing a budget, right?
Right.
It's explainable and covered.
Right.
And if people can refer back to the last budget presentation where we summarized all the COVID-related expenses, including technology, I think you see the breakdown of some of that cost.
Thank you. So insurance, these are the non-health insurance coverages that we're required to have. The auto insurance and some other liabilities are in the transportation codes, but most of them reside here. These are things that are fixed and unavoidable cost coverages we must carry. And you see they're going up 1.9%. That's actually pretty favorable. And that's a good reason for that is because we were closed the last 3.5 months of the 1920 school year. So our claims were very, very low, as were other districts. So the insurance companies have recognized that in their increases for next year. The judgments and claims, this is for payments for court-ordered settlements based on reduced property assessments. The payments that exceed the budget, the 100,000, are taken from the reserve for tax certiorari, more or less, as long as there's a reserve for that year. These costs are unavoidable and uncontrollable by the district. The amounts are paid based on the town's reduction in assessments. And we budget typically $100,000 per year, again, taking the balance from either the reserve for tax certiorari, if we have a reserve for that year, or the current year's revenue, if it's a refund of current year's taxes. 1940, purchase of land in a right-of-way. These are payments to other school districts for bisected properties. So if a property is sitting on 2 school districts' property and chooses to go to the non-Mamaroneck school district, we have to remit the school taxes that we receive for that property to that other school district. These are payments that are required by law, and in this budget are expected to go up 4.6%. Sewer taxes, these are payments for sewer taxes, and they're required payments, and they are expected to go up 3.8%. The BOCES administrative fees, this is a large increase in terms of being in this line, but what we've done is move all of the administrative charges to this line instead of having them in the code where the service is charged. So these are administrative fees that are charged to non-components of BOCES based on participation in services. Mamaroneck is not a component of BOCES, and therefore we don't pay into their administrative budgets, we don't pay into their capital budgets, but we do have to pay an administrative fee on the services that we do subscribe to. And so it looks like a big increase. It's more of a shift, and because we've moved all the administrative fees to this code, and these costs fluctuate based on the district's use of BOCES services. Transportation. The district provides mandated transportation services. Just please keep in mind that the 1920 expenditures reflect only 6.5 months of service. The savings in transportation, as we were just saying a minute ago, as a result of the pandemic, as well as the savings in health insurance and substitute teachers and utilities, as a result of the pandemic, enabled the district to incur a significant portion of the COVID-19 expenditures. The increase in this budget is a result of the increased vendor prices. You know, when we went out to bid last year, we didn't like what we got, so we went out to bid again immediately, and the prices came down, but they certainly didn't come down as much as we would have liked them to. We are going back out to bid again, and are working with our attorneys on creating a good situation for next year. And there's a detail of each one of these, so I'll wait to get to that. We do transport 156 students in district daily, 392 students out of district, and we do provide public transportation for 45 students. The number of schools we do transport to daily is 63 schools. The district must transport, it's not optional, all public and non-public students that meet the mileage requirements to their respective schools. The 5510, this represents the cost of our in-house people working on field trips, inter-district trips, a little piece of the business office people that are involved in this. It includes our non-health insurance, such as auto liability insurance. And yeah, that's what's in this budget, and it's expected to go up 7.2%. The 5530 is the cost of the utility garage. We have a cost of utilities for the transportation garage. We have a transportation garage across from MAS where routine repairs and maintenance on the district's vehicles and other motorized equipment are performed. And this budget is going down by 6.6%. Contract transportation. This is for in-district and out-of-district transportation. It includes our transportation for athletics and field trips as well. It includes our transportation management. Again, remembering that the 1920 expenditures were not for a full year. And the cause of the increase is because the bid prices for the 2021 bid included significant increases. And just a little more detail on who we transport. We transport 127 regular ed in district, 7 half-day BOCES, 313 non-public students attending 33 non-public schools, 29 special ed in district, 72 special ed out of district to 24 schools, total to transport 548 students. And public transportation, where appropriate, the district provides public transportation passes to high school students attending non-public schools. That's either Metro North Railroad or Beeline buses. And that's pretty level funded budget.
Any questions about transportation?
Just a quick question, Sylvia. You mentioned auto insurance in transportation, but also in the maintenance. They're two separate policies.
The auto insurance, I don't think did I mention auto insurance and maintenance? If I said it, I shouldn't have. The 1910, our auto insurance is not in the 1910.
Okay, maybe I misheard it. So.
Yeah, it's not, but thank you. Benefits. There's plenty of detail to follow. So for this page, I would just like to point out that all of the benefits are either government mandated or they're required by collective bargaining agreements or individual contracts. The overall benefits are recommended to go up $470,000 or 1.2%. So the 9010, the New York State Employees Retirement System, that is the system pension for all classified employees that belong to the New York State and local employees retirement system. The contributions are based on the wages that the employee earns and the tier to which the employee belongs. It's different than TRS in that the rate depends on when people joined and what that determines what tier they're in. So this, the tiers, I said that right, participation is required by New York State for full-time employees. And this is scheduled to go up due to really an increase in payroll and an increase in rate.
The rate is controlled by.
But the rate is controlled by New York State.
New York State. So the only control we have is the amount of our payroll.
Correct. The 9020 is a New York State teachers retirement system. This rate is going up from 9.53 this year to 9.8 next year. The pension, this is the pension expense for certified employees. So it's all teachers and administrators or most administrators. Contributions are based on the wages. And again, the tier is in there, but we don't see it. We just get one rate for the teachers retirement system. The increase is a result of the increasing salaries and an increasing rate that's applied to the salaries as determined by New York State, and participation is required by New York State. The Social Security, FICA, MedFICA, this is the Social Security and Medicare taxes on wages paid. The increase is a result of the increase in the maximum wages that will be subject to FICA for 2020, or that are subject to FICA for 2021, and participation is required by the federal government. Workers' compensation, the budget represents the annual charges since joining the consortium in 7/1/2018. The expenditures in excess of the budget are taken from the reserve, and those represent costs for injuries that were incurred prior to joining the consortium. And the projected expenditures here assumes the settlement of a large case incurred prior to 7/1/2018. If that case is not settled this year, that projected expenditures will go down by about 400,000. And the maintenance of this coverage is required by New York State. And there is no increase in the budget as a result of joining the consortium. Life insurance, these are life insurance premiums. Coverage is required by the collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts. And this is scheduled to go up by 2.5%. The rates premiums are based on both income and their rate per thousand. This is for the tax shelter annuity benefits, 403B accounts. Coverage is required by collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts, and the decrease is due to contract negotiations. The dental and vision 90/50, or you may hear it called the MTA Welfare Fund. The contributions are made to the MTA Welfare Fund, and they are made to the CSEA Benefit Fund for our CSEA custodial staff, and to the MTA Welfare Fund for everyone else that is eligible. The coverage is required by collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts, and the temporary decrease is due to contract negotiations. This amount is going to sunset and will likely go back up at the end of the teacher's contract. The unemployment benefits, school districts pay unemployment as claims are made. We don't pay a percentage of payroll in as private entities do. The pandemic has increased the number of claims and it's increased the duration of claims, and the coverage is required by law. The increase is just due to the pandemic, due to the increased number and duration of claims. Disability insurance.
Wait, can you pause for a second? I think
Sure.
it's a question. Did somebody just weigh in?
That was Bob. I think Bob was going to say something.
No, my screen froze, and so I
Oh,
was trying to advance the screen, that's all.
Disability, coverage is required by the collective bargaining units and individual contracts. There was a significant increase in rates, and this budget, even though it's a small budget, is expected to go up significantly to 18.8%. The health insurance. The 1920 expenditures were reduced due to the pandemic. They really came to a very quick halt in March and April, and where we were headed to a much higher year prevented that. The coverage is required by collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts, and there is no anticipated increase as a result of joining MEPCO on July 1st, 2020. And just kind of as a note, because I really wanted to know for myself, the 5 prior years on health insurance, the average increase was 5.5%. So that we're at zero. I know Bob is thrilled, as am I, to be presenting this budget.
Yeah, I think I said at the beginning in my first budget presentation that the major cost drivers, including health insurance for our employees, really has been on an annual basis, as Sylvia mentioned, a big challenge under the tax cap formula. And so I had charged Sylvia to really investigate alternative plan options. And, through her effort and ongoing conversations with MEPCO, we were able to find a partner that provides what I think we hope will be long-term stability in costs and maintaining quality of a health plan for our retirees and our active employees. And so, time will tell relative to this is year 1, and we're still under that umbrella of a pandemic. But what I would say is that the board is aware that the board invested money in a health consultant to look at options around health costs as we struggled with over a period of 5-6 years. I would say a significant uptick in health costs. And, and circling back with that consultant, in our recent decision, they were pleased to find out that we joined this municipal consortium that provides, again, quality of our plan, but also the flexibility and freedom of paying for what we utilize relative to a self-funded plan, but more so levels of protection by joining forces with other municipalities. So also just from a management standpoint, the amount of time and effort previously for the business office to manage all the claims and ensure that our the plan provider was really doing what they're supposed to in itself there was a cost associated with this. And so we've seen a significant improvement in the management for our employees in terms of this through this consortium. And the last thing I would say is that in our former plan, we had probably a significant percentage of out of network claims. And since we joined MEPCO, we've gone from probably utilization of down, it was at 75%.
From 84 to 99.
To 99. So
but
almost
that's actually
all,
probably gone down because of the Montefiore situation. But we were at 99 in December before Montefiore and United Healthcare parted ways.
so it's certainly a significant improvement in cost efficiency, but not compromising utilization and quality of the plan. So we're off to a great start, and this is a big part of it relative to level funding for the first time in many, many years.
Yeah, Bob, just real quick. I know having been on the board for 5 or 6 years and remembering the days of the monthly reports of not knowing what was going to look like, certainly that hopefully this seems to attenuate those peaks and valleys in terms of healthcare across the board. So I think it's a step in the right direction, hopefully, and hopefully we'll see that come to fruition moving forward. So
Thank you. Medicare Part B, we reimburse retirees that are on Medicare for Part B as the district becomes a secondary coverage provider. The budget is based on the potential liability, and coverage is required by the collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts. And the budget is level funded for next year.
Pause for 1 second before we go on to serial bonds, just to see if anybody has any other questions or comments. Okay, let's move on to serial bonds.
Serial bonds, this is just really the cost for the annual disclosure. Any bond cost in terms of principal and interest you'll see in the transfer to debt service funds. Any cost of issuance you'll see in the capital project. So this is just an annual disclosure cost that is a mandated financial disclosure. And again, it does not include any capital project expenses. The serial bonds, this is the cost of the district's energy performance contract, the principal and interest. The way the loan or the lease is set up, it does not increase or decrease. Here it was rounding of $1, but increase or decrease each year. It is the same amount each year until the final year. The transfers to other funds, you can see the overall contract going up by 4.2%. And if you switch to the next slide, there's more detail. So the general fund transfers money into other funds to make payments from the appropriate funds. The transfer to the debt service fund is increasing by $173,000 based on district's debt service schedule. If we do make some changes, we do have final numbers for that. So we just issued the bonds last week. So the transfer to the special aid fund pays for the district's share of the costs of the extended school year program. And the increase of $75,000 results from the shift of cost from the state to the district. The state was formerly paying more of a portion of these costs, and they have been trying for the last couple of years to shift some of those costs to the school districts.
It was unclear from the budget bills as to whether that is still, and I read through it a couple of times. And so it's unclear as to whether that shift went through in these budget bills. But
Any
we shall
question about
see.
interfund transfer?
I'm talking about the transfer to the special aid fund
Right.
And that's it.
and the cost shift. Thank you, Sylvia, for a very detailed and thorough explanation of these individual lines, most of which, we have no control over and are set by the state.
Yeah, this is not necessarily considered the most entertaining portion of the budget, but as you can see, that in terms of the components of expenditures, it is a significant part of the overall budget. Most of this is mandated costs, obviously. And the benefits side of it is a big portion of the overall, portion of the non-instructional budget. I think we've said that between salaries and benefits, you're talking about over 80% of the overall 144 million budget.
I do want to ask a general question, Sylvia. There have been several lines where you've said that the prior year was an extraordinary year. So you can't necessarily gauge what our expenses are going to be based off the prior year. So when you were working on putting together this budget, how did you go about determining what would be either an adequate amount, so that we don't overfund something to the best of your ability, or that we're not significantly underfunded?
So that's a great question. As Bob just said, 80% of our costs are salary and benefits, but for things like utilities, and I'm going to get into a little bit of a geeky kind of spreadsheet thing, but for things like utilities, I have spreadsheets that have utility costs over the years by the month. So I know at this point of the year, I should have had paid X percent of the utility costs, the gas costs, electricity costs, water costs, whatever it is. And that enables us to project for the rest of this year what we expect it to be, really somewhat disregarding last year. This is over a period of years. And even if you want to include the average of last year in the average. So it is what we expect to pay this year, not the budget for this year and not the expenditures for last year, but what we expect to finish with this year, that we're applying the rates that we know, we told from, Con Ed or whoever we're paying, the water company, those utilities, the cost of this year are increased by the anticipated increases that they are telling us we will see. But so certain things like that, contracts, transportation is based on this year. I mean, we know very clearly what we're paying for transportation this year. And so we can apply an increase to that. So those are our big cost centers. The benefits we know. What else? The debt service is a given. We have a debt service schedule. I'm trying to think of what else. What else can I tell you? But really, the focus was not on 1920 expenditures, because we couldn't, it was not a reliable source, and wasn't a reliable gauge of what's going to be.
Thank you.
Sylvia, it's amazing what you've put together and what you've accomplished, and tightening up this budget the way you have since you've been with us is really, it's a real testament to your skills and your ability.
Thank you.
And it really has made a big difference. And there's a lot of confidence, I think, of all the board members in what you put together and what you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That's very nice.
I also just want to note, and Sylvia's mentioned several occasions, over the last two budgets, there's just been a reworking of where things are located relative to kind of really be able to manage both the budget on a day-to-day basis, but also some clarity around historicals, so that by pulling and moving things to different categories under the overall budget, we now can track over time more clearly actual costs as well. And so that's something that Sylvia has been committed to in terms of restructuring the reporting mechanisms of the budget as well, and to align for state reporting and auditing and all the things that are, kind of behind the scenes relative to the day-to-day budget.
I remember the number of questions we had for Sylvia when she started collapsing those lines, and we started seeing numbers either go down significantly or up significantly when we were comparing back to prior year's budget books. So I think we're on a better trajectory now for understanding where things are, and certainly pointing to the BOCES move of those administrative charges. That certainly makes it much easier to track in terms of seeing the overall number.
Yes,
But
thank
in
you.
non-mandated aspects of the budget, and we talked about, Sylvia mentioned the energy performance costs. we're always looking for efficiencies where, from move to paperless, you use one example of a paperless fax, but, we've really over the last decade looked at every aspect of this budget and, are just what happens in schools and look for efficiencies and cost cutting measures, especially under the tax levy limit law, because we need to find savings and efficiencies in order we can focus in on prioritized instruction. And we hope to, at a next meeting, really focus on some benchmarking around the budget and, really pointing to where we prioritize. And it will show that both regionally, our instruction, our teaching is really, as a percentage of our general fund, is where we really want to be relative to putting those expenditures and focusing in on program and experience and staff.
Any other questions or comments from the board at this point? And I do want to emphasize that this is not the last opportunity for the board to ask questions in terms of the budget process. We are going to have the meeting on the 13th, followed by more of a summary meeting on the 20th, which is the date the board votes on the budget, and it would become the budget that is then presented to the community for a vote. So there will be opportunities as you look through all of this information and you have questions and also to the community to ask those questions at our April 13th meeting.
And we are trying to accumulate the questions, and that's what I wanted to just mention. We will use the April 13th meeting to kind of just publicly respond to the accumulated questions that have come forward by community members and that hadn't yet to be answered or presented publicly.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments from the board, I am going to briefly summarize our policy 1230 on public participation at board meetings. Would ask that the public please keep your comments to 3 minutes. There's no discussion of individual personnel or students. All comments, obviously, as our community always does, please conduct in a respectful and civil manner. And questions that can be easily answered now will be tonight, otherwise at a subsequent meeting. As I said, our April 13th meeting will be an opportunity for us to read aloud some of the questions and to respond to them. So you could always write to the board at board@mamkschools.org. And I know that PT Council has also been gathering questions and individuals, if we need to, which we haven't in a very long time, there'll be a warning as to failure to comply with the policy. And then unfortunately, we'll have to cut you off. So with that, I want to turn to questions from the community. Debbie Minetta is moderating that. Okay, will we?
Yet.
Okay.
I have Indreen.
Okay.
Who would like to ask a question?
Just a very quick question. You mentioned that you plan to go back out to bid for some of the transportation costs because they're a bit high. Is that, are you expecting that will change the budget here, or is that something that's going to happen later in time?
I don't think that it will happen before. It is not typical that the contract would be awarded prior to the budget vote because then the funds aren't in place. We're in the process of figuring out if we are going to go out for bid. We're also looking into piggybacking on a contract with another district. So I don't think that the 21-22 budget would be changed. If we end up with savings, that would be funds that would be available to be transferred to other programs. But I don't think it will be done in time. I don't think it can be done in time because it can't be awarded prior to the budget vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay. I am going to move along to future business. Hold on, I'm going to read the shorter version that Joanne provided. Requirements for the budget and election of trustees. In order to vote on the budget and election of school board trustees on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, it is necessary to be registered. Anyone registered for general elections is eligible to vote. For those who are not already registered, school voter registration day will be held on Wednesday, May 12th, in the district clerk's office from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Mamaroneck High School, or any school day with the district clerk at Mamaroneck High School. The last day to register is Thursday, May 13th by 4 p.m. in the district clerk's office. Applications for absentee ballots are available from the district clerk in schools and from our website. Ballot applications must be received by the district clerk no earlier than 30 days before the vote. Absentee ballots are due in the office of the district clerk by 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 18th. For details or questions, please contact the district clerk, Joanne Rice, at 914-220-3007 or visit the district website. Turning to upcoming meetings, as we've said, there will be a meeting on Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. That meeting will be conducted virtually via Zoom. Tuesday, April 20th, 7 p.m. Board of Education meeting. That will be where the board adopts the budget. On Tuesday, April 20th, the board will be returning to in-person meetings, which will be held in McLean Auditorium, which provides plenty of space for social distancing. There will be masks required, together with a sign-up sheet outside McLean Auditorium for individuals to sign in with their contact information. And we'll be bringing the band back together in person and not looking at each other through screens. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Tuesday, May 4th, 7 p.m. and all of our meetings that I'm announcing now subsequent to April 20th, unless there's a change in the health conditions or in any regulations or guidance, our meetings will be in person in McLean Auditorium. Tuesday, May 4th, 7 p.m. Board of Education meeting, topic budget hearing. Tuesday, May 18th, 7 p.m. Board of Education meeting. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Paul.
Second, anybody?
Second, Ariana.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everyone.